can also immediately distinguish what this line is. What type of line is this port? So let's. Just now, the AI router and its hardware architecture were discussed above. All the modules of the board have been covered. Next, we are going to take a look at the router as a process of data forwarding. A process of data forwarding. First, let's take a look at something simple. Simple series of 150 and 160 and 200. How does he actually achieve data forwarding? Achieving data forwarding. First, let's take a look at the forwarding of this layer 2 data between LAN ports. Sometimes this picture. So let's take a look. He actually directly completes it through which exchange module of ours. No need to go through our CPU. No need to provide CPU. So this is X2 if it is X3L3 data forwarding between WAN ports. Forwarding between LAN port and WAN port. At this point, we can see that it needs to be implemented through our two major modules. One of them is our exchange module, and then there's our CPU. Should be looking at these two images, not looking at the first picture. The first diagram is of L2's X2. This one and this one are inside our X3. One is between LAN ports, and between this LAN port and the WAN port. This is a process of data forwarding for them. Next, let's take a look at this AR1220. So he just talked about the 1220 with us. The data forwarding between them is the same. Let's take a look. First of all, if you are taking L2, how did his data traffic flow? He directly goes through our system. The switching module, our switching modules can directly connect through. You don't need to go through me for this. The switching network board and my CPU handle this. He is not needed. Let's take a look. X3 as well as the WAN port we just mentioned. How does he transfer data? At this time, at this point, you will need my LSW switching module. And my switchboard fabric and my CPU collaboratively perform data forwarding processing. Now, let's take a look AR2200, AR3200, AR3600. This router has high performance. How is the data forwarded between them? So it may look a bit complex from the diagram. So our mindset is actually in line with what we discussed before. Just talked about this series, the data forwarding he performs is the same. First, let's take a look at X2. Within my subcard, forwarding between LAN ports and X2 ports. Everyone can see how it is done. In fact, this is very simple. If I were X2, I can directly access my LSW through this. Forwarding can be achieved by using my switching module. No need to go through these other modules to achieve. So this is what we call L2. If your subcard perform layer 3 forwarding through this LAN port, do we need to forward through fabric? This is forwarded between LAN ports via this X3. So if your LAN port is connected to this fixed WAN port forwarding on the WAN port, what needs to be done at this time? At this point, it is necessary I need to include the CPU as well. Add the CPU into it as well. So the idea behind this is actually the same. That is to say, the higher the level you are at and the differences between your interfaces, the number of modules you need, there are more types of modules involved, even more variety. Next, let's take a look ARG3 router. Some of its distinctive features and application scenarios. In other words, some of its unique features. So in which scenarios can I use this router? What functions can be achieved? Let's take a look one by one. First, let's take a look at how this router addresses the comprehensive voice aspect. One of its solutions. So the information on this chart has already been displayed. First is the full interconnection with mainstream vendors. Interconnection, it's him first then integrate the PBX module to provide various services. So that means I have an internal PBX, then SIP, then this server connected to the gateway, etc. These basic voice functions I will have all support this SNMP and some management, etc. This is mainly reflects my router. It is also very convenient to manage, can have independent accounts. Reserve one for management compared to traditional. These routers are relatively easy to manage. Then there are some of its flexible interfaces. It can provide multiple interfaces to meet various needs. So this is in the voice solution. So that means, in other words, it integrates various voice functions. Using this data network to meet the voice needs of the enterprise, voice call requirement. So it provides a flexible and efficient means of communication for enterprises. So in here, what else can he actually provide? Compared to some more intelligent calls, functions like routing can ensure the availability of this service. So this is a brief overview of its solution in terms of voice. Now let's take a look at his QoS. QoS, as we all know, refers to quality of service in hardware. So in terms of QoS for my hardware, his router, how does he demonstrate this advantage? So here, there are actually two charts that can be compared. One is to say something. One is about the traditional enterprise router for me. He turned on QoS between the front and back, a change in his forwarding performance. So when he enabled QoS on my AR router, the performance change he experienced before and after. So actually, the diagram is already very clear. So let's take a look at the traditional diagram on the left. If QoS is enabled, his forwarding performance will immediately decrease. There will be a straight line decline, reduce its performance by around 30% to 40%. But let's take a look at our AR router. If he says after it's turned on, he can ensure the quality of our business at the same time. He has zero impact on the performance of his forwarding. It will not have any impact on your forwarding performance. What can be achieved at this time? For my enterprise, I can achieve efficient production management, efficient collaborative office. Of course, your voice call is definitely very smooth. Then you have video conferences, etc. Then some high quality communication is definitely able to meet all requirements. He said that he can ensure that the performance of the forwarded data is not affected. This is a very, very good advantage point. Next, let's talk about one of its security features, because security is something everyone is quite concerned about due to the development of the information age. Now, everyone is focusing on security. Information security is especially important. So, what is AR? So, the PPT also shows these question marks. It's something that all our enterprises will face, some doubts that will be faced in the field of information security. For example, how to reduce the risk of our company's important information being compromised and stolen. This is our most secure normally. The key point is to say, how do you ensure the security of my company's information? As we just mentioned, your router serves as the unique gateway for both my intranet and the internet. If your exit is breached, so your information is actually being blatantly exposed to all of this in front of all users who can connect to the external network. So this is definitely not allowed. The second question is how to ensure information security while expanding the network scale. That is to say, my company may be in its early stages. It means that your router can meet the requirements, but if the network scale expands, you can refrain from expanding the scale on my end. At the same time, it can ensure the security of my information. This is also a question that many enterprises will have. And then there is also how to ensure the information security of various business interaction information. It means that I may have to undertake a relatively large amount of business. The information is rather messy. There are many types, so how can you ensure the interaction of my information? I'm sending you this information when you pass it to me. There won't be this information. Security issue. So this is also something that everyone will consider. So this is actually based on everyone's considerations. This AR router from Huawei, he has actually helped according to his understanding of these. According to this requirement from everyone, he has already addressed these doubts through his technology, resolved one by one. For example, my VPN. Some firewalls that firewall twice NAT. Just these two NAT occurrences, then ACL, access control list, access control. List some user management AAA for 3A user management. These can help protect my information security. So that means, in short, that is the AR router. Actually, on the business side, to ensure the security of my enterprise network from the user side. Starting from user access on the control, then the packet is detected by active defense. It is a complete, secure, and protective mechanism. In this case, it actually means for the customers first and foremost. Can you ensure the security of my information? First of all, now let's take a look at one of its features. First of all, it's IA. So the abbreviation IAE in English. It is an intelligent sensing perception engine. It is an integrated content security business processing framework and a collection of security features or components. This is one of its definitions. It works with some secure knowledge bases. Real-time linkage of the Security Intelligence Center. In this case, it can facilitate various products to deliver content on it or applications customized, extended, integrated, or rapidly deployed for security services. This IAE, it is a framework extension based on NGE. So it has actually been referred to by use as a high performance firewall, next generation high performance firewall. In simple terms, it is equivalent to IAAE, a secure framework for this company. Add a security feature component combined with supporting knowledge base. Then add secure intelligent center linkage. So this constitutes our entire so-called IAE. This intelligent perception engine. So this diagram actually already includes the entire so-called framework of this NGE. It has extended this thing a lot, many things. So everyone can take a look at this. It's all a protection for my safety, a secure protection. This is after AR700. It means that VR is an added feature for us. Add such a feature because everyone, think about it, this must have been driven by demand. So some of this, why would such a situation arise? A secure product, a feature of security, mainly the cloud center and the egress of this large enterprise network IPS and this UTM need larger traffic bandwidth. This is one refers to the integrated IPS, then an automatic detection and action requirement, an automated linkage requirement. There is also a requirement for content security virtualization, content security function, multiple products, a shared requirement for multi-platform integration. So these are some requirements. Briefly describe some requirements. So this is actually what we call the next generation high performance firewall. Like our current firewall, let's get to know each other so easily. Just knowing its security performance is actually quite high, relatively high. We have just finished discussing security. Now let's take a look at the reliability of AR. Reliability is actually something that all IT facilities will consider because the enterprise is very concerned about this aspect reliability. That is to say, what does that mean in case of unexpected failures? Because whether your IT equipment can support your business operations will not cause any impact. So this is reliability. So let's take a look. AR, it has a high level of reliability. There is a value here, 99.999% decimal point guard. It should be more than 10 digits, it should be 5 digits. So that means it can basically guarantee that your server is almost 100% secure. It works stably. How is it mainly implemented? First, let's take a look at this being dual controller. Dual main control means it has two main control boards. There are two power modules. Actually, what most people can do most is usually to reduce some redundant devices, some modules, to prevent a single module from failing, causing some impacts on the business. Another feature is the hot swappable full range of cards. In fact, this is essentially a redundancy. And BFD rapid detection leads to switching. This mainly involves it's on top of a hardware device. In that design, there is a mechanism added with BFD internally. It can detect hardware failures and quickly switch over when they occur. Then there is also a multi-core parallel mutual backup. This is also a redundant concept. Then a protection for IB-link failure, fast recovery of VRRP failures. It's just VRRP, mainly to achieve that I can set 2. It actually virtualizes some gateways, then achieve the quick switchover of a service after a fault occurs in my fault. So this is about his reliability. Mainly introduce these together. Then let's take another look at the management aspect. One of his so-called zero deployment parts. So here he mainly talks about the product. Mainly, it is said that AR can support the TR069 protocol. By collaborating with ACS and NMS, achieve such an automatic configuration, he can achieve the batch deployment of some of these services automatically, issue and upgrade. This will reduce the deployment and maintenance costs of my equipment department. Moreover, this protocol can automatically monitor the status of a network. In this case, one of his operations and maintenance. It's about being able to operate and maintain in the later stage. Simplification comes first. In that case, after simplification, one of his costs will definitely decrease. So this is his detailed introduction on management features, then introduce another ops through the device. The device achieves this by providing a unified application programming interface, API. Open the VRP system to implement machine actions. Enable the VRP system to have the capability of simple programmability. Drive through built-in script operators. So, this picture actually outlined the architectural structure of the ops system I'm working on ops. He is VR27. A new version has been added in the future. A new feature has been added in the latest version. However, this is 1220. 1220V, then 1220W. This 1220VW, then 1220L. He does not support ops. The main scenarios where ops is primarily applied, let me introduce everyone. The first one is his intelligent diagnosis. It is done through threshold alarm function. Diagnose equipment memory is the CPU utilization rate exceeding the threshold. Also, there is the function of analyzing routing neighbor information. Can diagnose whether the neighbors of the equipment are normal. Interface information diagnosis function is also available. Of course, definitely it is a normal diagnosis of this interface. There is also the routing diagnosis and analysis function. Check if the routing of the diagnostic equipment is normal. Monitor key route changes function. Key changes key route. When the important route changes, he will then go through the logs. Corresponding records will be generated. Next, let's take a look at the intelligent configuration. When entering the configuration mode, I can automatically configure backups. Enable automatic backup before starting the configuration. Configure the servers to the local end and the remote end. Add user information for configuration file changes. So, this refers to when changing the configuration. Record changes to configuration username and IP address. What other functions does it have? Configuration wizard service. You can enter the configuration mode, provide a wizard function guide, and simplify the entire configuration process. Lastly, just mention one more thing. He can shut down unnecessary services. Once you enter the configuration mode, automatically monitor for unnecessary services. If there is, you can go now turn off the corresponding service. So actually, I mentioned AR right from the beginning. What is he as an application of enterprise egress gateway? In other words, his enterprise connect to the external network and connect to the external network, and it serves as an entrance for external network traffic coming in, entrance and exit. So in fact, its cost performance is relatively high. Just mentioned that its reliability and performance are very good. And it's easy to deploy. Very convenient whether you are a headquarters of an enterprise micro branch, small branch, medium branch. Whether it's a large branch or not, the AR router can solve the issue of the exit gateway. So actually no need to say more than take a look at the enterprise bandwidth access router scenario. So it's as an enterprise, this exit router provides wide area network access. Then he can also meet our requirements. Let's take a look at the diagram to see if it meets the requirements. E1 Ethernet 3G WLAN. Wait for these access requirements. What is the standard he can provide for this PoE? It is IEEE 802.3 AF, and this AT have a standard. So it can be hung down to the far end through this bipedal orientation, this device setting. For example, your IP phone power supply. This is all acceptable. It's the function we just mentioned, the so-called PoE, Power over Ethernet, PoE. It was just mentioned above that there are two regions. So 802.3 is AF. The power output of one of his ports is around 30 watts. If it's 30 watts, he is able to ensure this device, which has a relatively high power setting. In this case, he can also provide power through PoE. Just briefly explain this. In this scenario, one of the functions of this router, of mine enterprise branch access router switch integration. So everyone can take a look. Actually, I am AR. Actually, it is also a point of access as a branch of various branches. Access it into our wide area network. The AR2220, 3200 and 3600 series can provide 8FE, an interface card for 1 GE and 24 GE Ethernet. In other words, it's a different series. Actually, we have talked about one of his interface cards before. He can provide different interfaces. In that case, he can achieve VLAN across cards, number of exchange new connections in VLAN, then link aggregation. So, the data exchanged in these second and third layers should also be feasible. This is mainly about as a brancher go to connect to our router switch. This is a scene at this moment. Now, let's take a look at an enterprise's VoIP. Regarding the voice aspect, let's take a look. Just mention the router. He configured the PBX. In this case, he can provide enterprise PBX IVR, voice navigation call, detail records query, etc. is a communication of voice. In this way, it can effectively enhance a phenomenon in my entire enterprise. Because of your voice, the perception to people will be very good, then improve the efficiency of communication within and outside my enterprise. This mainly pertains to the aspect of voice. Enterprise voice, one of its functions, AR, is deployed in the enterprise branches. Supports intelligent one router dialing function. Can be based on the destination number. The end-to-end intelligence selects a circuit for this egress. This way, it can save enterprise branches. Expenditure. When a wide area network WAN failure occurs, you can use our public telephone network as a backup circuit for calls. That is our PSTN. So, when the headquarters SIP server is unreachable. So, by using the built-in local SIP server, normal communication between branches and the public switched telephone network can be achieved. This way, it can ensure the reliability of enterprise voice services. Then next, let's take a look at the VPN gateway program for the enterprise. So here, he divided it into two. One way is to build a VPN using Intel networks. Another way is to use MPLS to build VPN. Let me take a look. Actually, both of these can provide what GRE VPN, IPsec VPN, secure tunnel. This way can achieve secure access and transmission of data. Support rapid deployment of branch office tunnels, tunnel authentication, and other functions. So it can also serve as a PE device in an MPLS network. Deployed in various branch offices, different services can communicate through VPNs existing in MPLS, achieving virtualized operations for enterprise business. So with this router, he can provide a variety of security access functions, including this GRE VPN, IPsec VPN secure tunnel to achieve the secure access and transmission of my data. So, partners can actually receive it through this remote tunnel approach. Access an internal resource. Within the enterprise, support secure authentication and authorization for this user. So previously I mentioned this MPLS L3 VPN. He can also achieve the flexible deployment of my VPN service. Fast forwarding for secure transmission, realizing the virtualization operation of enterprise business. This is also a relatively important one. He serves as a scenario of a VPN gateway. And then finally, let's take a look at the last one, a scenario of 3G LTE wireless access. Wireless access. So he supports CDMA 2000 EVDO, then WCDMA, a security system for TDS CDMA. 3G standard is standard for 3G, using the access method of 3G USB data. Card slots not occupied by device services, meaning he does not occupy a slot. He uses this form of plug-in card, supports intelligent measurement routing, a technology of SPR and NQA. Flexible expansion is the 4G technology. This is a scenario for wireless access for my 3G and LTE. So, the 3G data link can serve as a backup link for wired connections regarding XDR-F1HT on AR, or the RSDM's link provides link protection. Effectively improve the stability of the network to reduce the cost of network construction NQA technology. Actually, it can also achieve monitoring the quality of the 3G link to effectively ensure the SLA of each user. This is in the scenario of 3G and LTE wireless access. AIR can produce those effects. At this point, this is an introduction to a product of the AR series routers in this session. So it's coming to an end. Let's take a look at a summary of this chapter. Let's see what exactly we have been talking about. The first one is the AR access router. Its positioning. In terms of positioning, then we all know it is a comprehensive gateway for enterprise business. We said from the beginning, it is a gateway. It is the only gateway connecting the internal network and the external network of an enterprise. Remember this, everyone. Then there is the enterprise's blade module. Now let's take a look at one of its cards here I mentioned from SIC to WSIC before. How is it achieved from WSIC to XSIC to the final EXSIC? How are these cards interconnected? Then there are some special features of AAR, including aspects of voice QoS, security, and high performance. How is it achieved? And finally, there is a scenario for its application, just what we talked about. So, this is what we are going to talk about in this chapter. There are a few reflection questions to share with everyone at the end. Take a look. So, what should we choose for the first question? Which series are included in the R basic series? Definitely all inclusive. 1200, 1500 with 2060, 3600 distinguished by appearance. What types of service cards are supported by AR series routers at the access layer? What should this be? Is the SIC correct? Just as we discussed, HCIA Data Center Network XSIC, then EXSIC. So the answer is quite obvious.